Jedi Survivor without the lightsaber proved to be one of the hardest challenges I've ever undertaken. But right before I began it, I got a request to beat Jedi Survivor with only the blaster. I'm ready now to see if I can forego the help of the Force and rely solely on my blaster to fulfill that request. Now this kind soul gave me the option to use parrying in order to recharge my blaster, and I can reflect blast back at any who fire on me, which is very giving. But I've decided to relinquish such allowances and avoid any ability that doesn't directly involve the blaster. So no parrying or deflections for me, except the occasional ones that Cal automatically does when he runs. But I'll try to minimize that by always dodging to get around instead of sprinting. If the move involves firing the blaster, it's allowed. No lightsaber usage, kicking, or force attacks. Since this will be a New Game Plus run, as that's the only way to acquire the blaster from the get-go, then I'm gonna have plenty of healing stims. But to ensure maximum difficulty, I'll be leaving the Warrior perk on, which makes stronger enemies spawn throughout the story. Plus, of course, I'll be beating as much as I can on Grandmaster difficulty. Now that I've established Cal's odds of survival are extremely low, let's not wait to get shot and instead ensure Cal always shoots first. Well, challenge over. We lost. Right away, Cal springs a surprise attack on the Senator and his guard. This introductory fight may be simple, but it has a crucial, lacking element. I have no gun, nor a way to get it, so these waves of men must die to the Force and my blade instead. There's no way around this, so I do what I must, but the real question is, how will the rest of the game go beyond this tutorial fight? Here at the first meditation point, I not only unlock a treasure trove of knowledge all centered on the blaster stance, but I also acquire the uncivilized weapon that my life depends on. Essential to my survival is grabbing the marksman perk as well, so my shots can deal worthy damage. Now that I'm locked and loaded, it's time to go get shot. Well, socked in the face by a security droid first, but then shot. Also, fried. Lots of terrible things are happening to Cal, and I can't do anything about it at this point in time except flee screaming like a baby. The screaming part is optional, but I do prefer it. Cal's blaster only holds 10 shots, which I can only regain by perfect dodging, and it takes 2 perfect dodges to equal 1 shot. So yeah, that's why I scream and flee. Fleeing is not my preferred method of handling things, but my preferred method went out the window with all my other means of combat, so this will have to do. At least I have my sweet, sweet stims to keep me breathing. While Cal continues to build an unhealthy dependency on stims, I also recognize that the power of the mullet fits to an extraordinary Force user, not a gunslinger, and so it's time for a new style change. The red works so that no one can tell how much I'm bleeding. When I'm almost off Coruscant, I find my path blocked by a hulking sentry droid. These guys can take quite the beating and give one in return, so it's time to become a crafty rat. Not too difficult when there's a weak scout trooper nearby that I can keep alive in order to build up my ammo supply, unload on the droid, and then repeat this process until the droid is scrapped. Having escaped most of the Imperial presence on the planet, I find my way blocked by the imposing Ninth Sister. As the first boss of the game, she's more of a visual menace than a true one. In fact, when she tries to outsmart Cal by taking on an unhittable stance, I find all this serves to do is help me. Her attacks are slower and even more predictable here, so that I can rebuild my ammo and then lay into her the second she becomes vulnerable. Unfortunately, even though in the last playthrough I had found a way around having to do her tutorial dual wield section, that method requires the Force. Since Cal is cut off from the Force, this leads to another moment where I must forego the blaster and use the tactics this tutorial forces me to use in order to finish the Ninth Sister off. With her resting comfortably in the afterlife, time to sprint away, getting Bode and Bravo to clear the way for me. I'm not allowed to order Bode to do anything, but if I avoid dying for long enough, he'll always handle it in the end, even if a tad slower than I'd prefer. It got a little too hot for my liking on Coruscant, plus can you imagine all the pollution in a city planet? No thanks. I'm off to Kobo for some fresh air, and if these raiders have anything to say about it, fresh blaster holes. Maybe the city was better for my health after all. If I can actually get a heal off before the super battle droid interrupts me, plus fully focus my attacks on it, then we're golden. The other droids blocking my way are far less trouble when I can either fight them off, or in the case of this big group, lure these explosive mines into following me before a super battle droid sets them off for me. The power of teamwork is wonderful to behold, especially when it's the enemy team accidentally helping me. Reaching Pyloon Saloon to meet an old friend, I have some fun with the mini-boss raider outside. I gotta give him props for getting back up and trying again every single time I send him flying. Well, except the final time, but I think being dead is a good excuse for not trying again. Chatting with my friend Grease and then rescuing this old droid Z in order to get the key mission of the game to find sanctuary from the Empire on the unreachable world of Tanalorr, I'm good to wander the wilds. You'd think wandering through nature, my biggest danger would be the big beasties. But no, they're not too interested in me if I just run on. It's these raiders that are the real issue. Probably vengeance for that one mini-boss I had just humiliated, so I don't blame them. These raiders have the ability to pin me into the dirt and my only escape is to kick them. Which I'm not allowed to do, so it means I have to stare as Cal gets tased into oblivion. Thankfully, it's an easy move to avoid. But of course, the one run where I can't fight back against it is the one run where I fail on repeat to avoid it. Who would have guessed bringing a gun to an electric stick fight would be bad for the guy with the gun? Taking on the Imperials in the region, I do my best to fight them. But getting shot really hampers my ability to perfect dodge, so in the end, that's another fight I have to flee past. I'm just glad the same doesn't apply to the Mogu in the area, as they're punishing, but much more reliable to dodge and take down. One last batch of imps block my entrance into Dagan Gera's chamber, and they're not a group I can avoid. On the bright side, a trooper commander. I love these guys, as they lack any sense on when to toss their grenades, and are more of a threat to their own men than to me. Not sure how they ever got promoted to commander in the first place, but I suppose if you have a habit of killing your allies, you'd be the only one left to be promoted. The hard part is avoiding getting beaten to death or shot too much before he finally deals with his friends. If I didn't have all those healing stims, this would not be a happy ending. Which I suppose it's not for the poor commander here as we dance one final time before I thank him for his help. Now that the path is clear, I can head in and face off with Dagan Gera, the one Jedi Cal manages to find who happens to also be completely bonkers with the worst personality. At least Dagan lacks any sense of haste in fighting me. If I wasn't so careless about taking him on, I wouldn't have had to use as many stims as I do. But still, this first fight is a breeze for me. Of course, I've fought almost every boss in this game for far more hours than is reasonable, but more than that, Dagan's slow and arrogant in his fighting, making it possible to recharge my shots without much trouble. I hope losing on the very first try to only my blaster will convince Dagan to be a little more humble, but something tells me that's unlikely. Now that Cal's accidentally unleashed a homicidal, narcissistic, raging ex-Jedi on the land, it's probably a good idea to skedaddle and head off planet to lie low on the desert of Jedha. Our time starts off quite easy going at first, as no one is prepared for how easily I can simply jog on by. But when I'm ambushed by a "they fly now" trooper, that's when things get a tad bit more complicated. Trying to remove 3 troopers who have taken to the dreaded high ground, I know I won't be able to kill them if I run out of ammo and they're the last ones left, so I strive to prioritize their deaths. Unfortunately, I can't control who Cal chooses to fire at, as he enjoys firing at whoever is closest in his line of sight, or just for fun, nothing at all. That's just great, Cal. I see why frickin' everyone dies on you. I mean, it's okay, bud. You tried your best. This means I have to run all around the room, trying desperately to get these jetpack units to take a swing at me, so I can collect the lawsuit money. I mean, so I can perfect dodge and get more ammo. Unfortunately, they're not in a rush to hit me, and when they do, I don't seem to be in a rush to avoid breaking my nose. Either that, or they just accidentally blow each other up as they love to do. But keeping at it, I get the ammo and remove the troopers, bringing in everyone's favorite lovable Night Sister Marin. I'm so relieved to see her, and her help is absolutely vital in fighting off the Imperial reinforcements. So vital that not getting enough of it when fighting 2 sentry droids means Cal gets to take a dirt nap. Trying again, I get to have every bone in my body broken, healed by stims, and broken again. But that's just the fun of being Cal Kestis. Without Marin, my odds of survival in all the Jedha fights would drop horrendously low. So if I didn't love her before, well, now I'm dependent on her. So I'm sure that's healthy for the relationship. Reaching safety, I'm super touched by my friend Bode catching up to me and giving me my own blaster as a gift. I don't think pickpocketing somebody and then giving it back is much of a gift, but if we're allowed to do that, then I don't have to worry about birthday presents ever again. Now that I've had enough near-death experiences on Jedi, time to return to Koboh to have a full death experience at the hands of the Rancor, but only one. My time fighting this fella in his copycat in my last playthrough means he's not anything to worry about, but I can't pass up battling the big one. It's either that or climb on its head and teach it to cook, but I'm not that kind of rat. More dangerous than the Rancor are these two head smashers hanging out right in the way of where I need to go. I don't feel confident about fighting them both, not because they're too dangerous, but because they have so much health. And well, actually, now that I mention it, yeah, they're pretty dangerous. So I do what I can to avoid them and work the mechanisms of this room so I can just scrape on by. Unfortunately, while this works at first, I'm not getting out of here without fighting them. As I'm waking up from the consequences of that bad decision, I realize that actually solves my problem, because I got what I wanted and I'm safely back out, so yay for accidentally outsmarting them by dying. The raider with the lightsaber trying to block me from finishing my job out here is adorable and doing his best. Sadly for him, getting blown off his feet by my gun is much too simple, and I can take out 4/5 of his health right as the fight starts. Then it's just a matter of dodging his predictable grapple and avoiding the rest of his moves till I can blast him again. My time on Koboh has been overall pretty good, which is great, because I'm going to need that memory to offset my time on the Shattered Moon. If I try to run past the hordes of raiders blocking my way, including 2 shielded droidicas and a jetpack duo who loves to tase me, well, I'll just find my way blocked by a big door. So yeah, that does not end well for Cal despite my best attempts. Accepting I can't rush by, I attempt to fight my way through and that goes pretty badly. But trying again, it's not so bad the next attempt, especially if I let loose on the droidicas before they can shield up, or at the very least, focus on breaking the shield as fast as I can. Then it's just a matter of hopping madly around the room, hoping I don't become a victim to the easiest enemies in the game before blasting my way through all of them. I'm happily surprised to find the Magna Guard that comes next is actually easy to blast mid-attack, and the way is clear for me to sprint past everyone else trying to kill me. It's pretty obvious by now that being stuck with a blaster that has very limited ammo means boss fights are my saving grace, not my weakness. It's all the minions running around with blasters of their own that I'm scared of. If only Cal would take one of their guns with infinite ammo, I'd worry a whole lot less. Oh well, I still have plenty to easily blast this second raider with a saber. He makes me use a good deal of stims before I can do it though. Unfortunately, here's where I'm forced into crossguard stance. Usually, I just force push my way out of this, but since that's not an option, I guess I'll just stand slightly out of reach of the murderous droids and contemplate my choices. Jumping to my death and trying to get them to do the same doesn't seem to be the best answer. I guess they know that trick. Coming back to try again, I'm astonished to find the zip line turned on, and I can simply zip away. I don't know if that's what's supposed to happen if you die in this section, but I'm more than happy to take advantage of it, just to get my blaster back and turn right back around so I can show these droids my wrath. They're not impressed, and Cal has many more scars to show for the trouble. Returning to Jeddah, most fights can either have Marin do the work for me or be run right past, minus another bad beating by a sentry droid. I hate those guys so much. Almost everyone else on this little adventure can be run by, or easily shot. I'm not the biggest fan of skipping fights, so I face off against those I think I have a nice chance against, but when there's a large assortment of guns pointed at me, I know better than to stay for a chat. Hey, if Han Solo could do it, I like to think I'm allowed to as well. Life is always easier when I'm on Koboh, but life also loves to throw sand in my eyes every chance it gets, so I shouldn't be surprised when returning to Koboh leads to a lot more pain. Breaking into the raider base, filled to the brim with raiders, especially the annoying, shocking kind, will do that, to be fair. If I didn't have Bode there, I shudder to think about how many more deaths I'd have. As is, I die plenty, because Bode is never in a hurry to do anything at all. On one hand, without him, I'm dead. On the other hand, his incompetence is hurting my body and soul, mostly my body, so I'm not sure how thankful I really need to be. Persevere enough though, and the pain will subside. to be replaced by a new form of pain when I have to rip this turret apart in order to progress. I managed to avoid breaking any of the others, but this one needs to be broken in order to move forward. I don't know if the turret really counts, but the enemies standing on top of it definitely do, and there's nothing I can do about that. Pressing on, I run right into Dagan Gera yet again, which makes sense since I'm running around in his base. All fights start off really well because I have full ammo at the beginning, of course, and then everything turns south quickly once I'm low. In the sequel game to this, I'm praying for a perk that allows Cal's ammo to slowly regenerate if they would be so kind. Dagan is far too dangerous and speedy for me to out-dodge, except for one charge attack that I'm extremely familiar with at this point. I just have to wait him out until he uses it to build my blaster charge back up, but the hard part is that Dagan will deflect any shot I send his way, unless I do it mid-attack, which often involves a red-hot blade searing my face. Between that and his reluctance to use the one ability he knows I'll dodge, this fight gets way too dragged out. But if I can be patient enough and time it right, Dagan will slip up. I have less options than my no lightsaber run, but more experience and more healing stims. With Dagan heading off for his lunch break until our next encounter, I head to the Shattered Moon once more so I can sprint past all the raiders. That is, until I reach this room with this large cannon. I could run past these guys too, and based on how things go for me, I probably should've. But like I said, if there's a decent chance I can take the enemies on, I prefer not to run. This huge disintegrating cannon gives me that chance. If only I could strap that on Cal's shoulder and use that as my new blaster. Could have really used that help when I'm put up against this group of Magna Guards that have Commando Droid backup, that have Jetpack Raider backup. That's too much backup for a guy with a gun that only fires 10 shots, especially since the Commandos can dodge my shots if I don't fire at point blank. My only hope is to try and get the Commandos to misuse their grenades, but they use them far less often, so it takes a nice deal of deaths before I can pull it off. Only for my reward to be a battle against their leader Ravis. Last time I was here, things didn't go well at all. Though, now that I think about it, literally every time I'm here, things do not go well. And in all those times, I have had more options than I do now. I may know Ravis's moveset like the back of my hand, although admittedly I don't look at the back of my hand all that much, but I digress. It doesn't change that I can't outshoot the regenerating Rage Warrior, especially if he lands a hit on a certain one of his combos, as there's no breaking out of that one until he's finished, which nearly always means I'm dead. That's the most common way for this fight to end, and no matter how I look over it all, I don't know how to stop that. I can dodge him mostly reliably, but not perfect dodge him enough to build the ammo up fast enough to take his health down before he can heal his wounds. Just once I'd like to fight this guy and not have a mental meltdown. For about an hour and a half, we battle, but I can't seem to do more than hold his health halfway through his second health bar. I always ensure I have full ammo going into his second health bar, and I take advantage of the full reload I get with my Dying Light, but that only serves me so much. From there, I'm just stuck, even if I get better at perfect dodging. The fight relies too much on whatever move Ravis chooses to do, as certain moves, like his shooting, only serve to heal him without putting him at risk whatsoever. Searching desperately for a way around this conundrum, I stand there and think about what, if anything, can make the difference. That's when an idea comes to mind, and having nothing to lose, I use the one blaster move that I've ignored until now, Cal's Quick Draw. Cal may tap into the Force for this, but it's definitely a blaster move through and through. I've only avoided it because I thought it was an awful move that was more useful for style than anything else, as any damage at all will interrupt Cal, wasting the Force usage. I never realized until now that using the move, for some odd reason, doesn't cost Cal any blaster shots. The fact that it hits hard and doesn't cost any blaster ammo is all I need to realize to understand I've found my way forward. But like I said, it's incredibly easy to interrupt, so using it is super risky, especially since Ravis doesn't ever like to let up. This leads to a lot more pain on my side as I have to learn the best time to use it, especially since I have to be careful to not accidentally block any blaster bolts as I start the move. Nonetheless, mixing this move in does make all the difference, as I can ensure Ravis takes more consistent damage. I really do cut it close, and probably deserve to be Jedi soup on the floor, but all the practice plus lots of stims means I can react fast enough to take advantage of the quick draw, followed by one last regular shot in order to end Ravis's threat. Going forward, I find that Ravis, while certainly problematic, is far more fun to fight than all the waves of troopers, droids, and raiders blocking my way. I wish I could reprogram the droids at the very least, but no, that would be against the challenge. If the enemies weren't so awful about using their explosives, I would have had a worse time here than I already do. I mean, really. Someone needs to take all these grenades and rockets away from these guys, as they definitely don't know how to safely use them. As for the raiders, Bode is my lifeline, and without him, I don't see myself getting past all these huge raiders, accompanied by super battle droids, followed by more raiders, accompanied by commando droids, followed by more droids, accompanied by even more droids. Yeah, no, Tanalorr would not be worth it, but Bode is here, so yay for that. Good old reliable Bode. I'm glad I can always count on that guy. I don't trust often, but I'm sure we can trust him at least. I'm also really glad I discovered the value of quick draw, as without it, I don't want to imagine how much more brutal this would all be. 10 minutes 24 seconds. That's how long Daggingera and I fought. Daggy is plenty dangerous, but I'm not stupid enough. Well, okay, I am, but this one time I'm not stupid enough to fight him without being as cautious as possible. I only fire when I know it will hit, I only dodge what I know I can dodge, and I always eliminate his duplicate illusions as fast as I possibly can. Using all 12 of my healing stims do show he's still a danger, but honestly, that was more because of his duplicates. Still, it only takes one try to bring down the crazy guy and end the game. What? You're telling me there's more to this game? Can we just pretend for once that's not true and Cal can be happy just this once? Look at him! He's just a little guy! He doesn't deserve what's about to happen just cause he's an overly trusting fella? Fine, but at least I'm gonna speed it along by hurting Cal so much with the power of gravity that when Bode does betray me, he can beat me a heartbeat into his fight. Let's not drag it out after all. As poor, sweet, innocent Cal rests, I can have my entire challenge slain like a bunch of younglings when I find myself as Cal's master's seer. Frickin' proper Jedi in their dislike for guns? Yeah, no gun? Not much help for the challenge, right? I really do try and get Seer's Inkerite reinforcements to do the job for me, or at the least, this Stormtrooper commander to blow all his friends up, but Seer will always die long before that happens. At least death resets the fight, so that starting force deflection won't count. But yeah, that leaves me with only two options. One, show all these poor unlucky fools what happens when you remove all my challenge restraints, or two, lower the difficulty until I reach a difficulty that Seer has a chance at surviving, and take advantage of her reinforcements, plus the Stormtrooper's own stupidity, to fight without ever attacking. Obviously, I choose the second. Even though it burns me to lower the difficulty, it's still preferable over breaking the main challenge rule of attacking without a blaster. It does take a while to pull off, and I have to bring the difficulty all the way down to Jedi Padawan level to survive, but if I keep dodging all over the place, sooner or later, the plan will work and the troopers will fall. Half by their own hands, half by my Ankerites, and the last two, I think, just by heart attacks. Whatever works. The moment Marin shows up to help me, I immediately raise the difficulty back up to Grandmaster and wait around for her to handle the rest of the Imperials between me and safety. I spend in total an hour as Seer, simply waiting around for others to do all the fighting for me, and desperately dodging and hiding wherever I can until I'm safe. I do have to use Force Slam to bring down a rock to block any further Imperial invasion, which does suck, but that's how that goes. It's time for the real challenge breaker, Vader. He gave me hell in my no lightsaber run, and honestly, I'm glad to see him now. You see, as Seer, I have no other options, and the challenge must be broken here. So now, it doesn't matter how I fight Vader, which means I can tear into the machine monstrosity. He has an awful defense and isn't any trouble to handle, well, unless Seer completely whiffs on the charge attack and gets obliterated. I might have been a tad overeager there, or Seer was seeing double, cause wow, I really did not see that coming. Second try though proves that Vader isn't any worry for me, as in 2 minutes I can tear through his lackluster defense and have the Dark Lord beaten without a scratch on me. I needed this! Less needed is the saber to Seer's gut, but she did break Star Wars rule numero uno. If you are not Obi-Wan, Luke, or Ahsoka, you run as fast as possible in the other direction whenever you run into Darth, then you will die, Vader. Leia is also a fair choice, but that's cause there is no one braver than her. She'll just let that signature Skywalker sass out on him. Cal had the sense to run after all, and that's why he gets a game called Jedi Survivor. Vader is what he survived. My visit to the Imperial listening station that Bode lures me to is not a pleasant one. I don't die very often, but that's cause my stims and desperation in action more than anything else. The true trouble of this place is not the large Imperial presence, the sentry droids, or even having to tap into the dark side, another unavoidable force move. Though it really doesn't have any effect on anything or truly hurt anyone. No, the major threat are these purge troopers. Not even because they hit hard, but because this particular variant, the dual wielding kind, will block almost any shot I fire. Even my point blank shots get blocked by these guys. I thought they were trained to fight force users. How does that include the ability to block blaster shots? Whatever the case, this means every fight with these guys goes on for way too long as I struggle to dodge enough, plus fire at the very, very last possible second so that I can actually land the shot. With the station in ruins though, I can continue the chase with Bode by fighting another outbreak of Imperials on Kobo. These ones are just as dangerous with there being 5 waves of them. But nothing a little standing out of sight to let my quick draw recharge and trying again and again can't fix. This has proven to be a very painful adventure thus far, as all the minions proved far more irksome than any boss, but that's because they had guns. Most bosses don't use guns, or in the case of Ravis, at least had the good nature not to deflect my shots like Dagon does. Bode is the anomaly boss, as he not only uses guns, he also has a lightsaber that he's free to use, unlike me. This means he can deflect everything I send at him if I don't fire in the small window of his attacks, and all the while, he'll open fire at me. For almost an hour, Bode and I go back and forth as I struggle to land my shots without him deflecting them, or him ruining my quick draw with a shot to my gut. Bode's stellar defense and offense means I get to die 7 times, but nearly all those 7 times got him heavily injured. It doesn't help that a few of them come about when he uses the Force to grab me, and in order to escape that, I'd have to use the Force back on him. I obviously can't do that, and if I don't have full health, I'm very dead. Or in the case of one move, even with full health, I'm very dead. I have to do everything possible to keep the distance so he won't use those moves on me. Bode's third phase, his no blaster phase, is wonderful, because I'm not getting shot at anymore, but it's also pretty bad, because Bode's in full Spartan Rage mode. I use quick draw as much as I possibly can, because the risk of me getting my ammo back through dodging is way too high for my liking. Unless he force pulls me close, as that always proves to be a guaranteed perfect dodge. It's a slog of a fight, and Bode strikes me more than I'd ever care for, but being patient and waiting for the right openings is the key. Bode provides me with just enough ammo to get a solid blast off and bring the other crazed ex Jedi of this game down for good. Bode had infinite ammo, a lightsaber, and the Force on his side, but I had the power of an extremely unhealthy degree of healing drugs on mine, and we could see that was just a bit more powerful. Huzzah! After 17 hours, 37 minutes, 90 deaths, and 6 forced non-blaster moments, I've beaten most of Jedi Survivor with only the blaster. The starting fight, the dual-wielding tutorial, the elevator turret, the rock slam, the Vader fight, and the dark side tutorial are all moments that force otherwise, but all things considered, I say that's pretty good. I thank you for the recommendation, Sailburner. I really enjoyed the challenge, and thank you all, every one of you, especially my kind patrons, for all your support and joining me on this adventure. And before any of you ask, beating Jedi Survivor with only the Force is not possible as far as I can tell. On Grandmaster anyway. Ravis would never let you. But I would be tempted to see how it goes on Master difficulty at the least. In a decade maybe. For now, I'm gonna let my blaster cool, take a long walk in nature, and maybe see about becoming a crab. I wish you the absolute best and all the willpower in the world. You got this, I believe in you.